A good communicator is one who speaks little and listens more. I will not be off the mark. We often think that someone who is very verbose, very continually talking, very full of ideas and words and speeches, we often think that that person is the best communicator. But the best communicator may be that person who speaks only when required, who speaks only what is required to be said, and who speaks in a manner that is pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the ear, pleasing to the persons involved, and is most of the time receptive as a good listener. Now, in my career as an IAS officer, some of you may not know what IAS is because you're not in India. It is the Indian Administrative Service. And I was from the state of Haryana, Haryana Civil Service Officer, and then I became an Indian Administrative Service Officer on promotion. So I found in my career in the service, and I resigned voluntarily about 3 years ago to become a motivational speaker, it is important for us to realize that when we are in a civil service situation or in the administrative service situation, we will meet people from all backgrounds, all types, all educational levels, all levels of thinking, culture, mindset. How receptive we must be in such a scenario, I cannot even begin to emphasize enough. It is extremely important for us to be open-minded, open-hearted also. Our hearts and minds both have to be open in order for us to receive what is being said to us, or even a written communication, which we'll talk about in a short while. A written communication received by an officer or by the CEO of a company, or by a teacher, or by a doctor, how much of it do we actually read? Those of us who are busy people, we just scan through it. And of course, somebody's written something very carefully. We don't have much time to read it, so we just scan through it. We may or may not get the thrust of the real emphasis that the person wants to make. Similarly, when somebody is speaking to us, we most often do not really listen to understand. We normally listen to reply. And if we listen to reply, that means that we are impatient because the person is speaking and we are just trying to reply. We are thinking, when will this person give me a pause, or I will forcefully interrupt this person and reply. That reply having been done, then we again wait for the next moment when to reply again. So I think we need to cultivate patience and understanding to be good communicators. Of course, sometimes we have deadlines. Many of you are maybe aspiring media persons, or maybe already in the media or in PR, where you have to make press notes, where you have to write reports, where you have to write stories in the newspaper, or perhaps you have to speak on television or videos, and therefore you are in a deadline situation. The deadline situation means that by 6 o'clock I have to get this out. I don't have time to listen to anyone before 6 o'clock. Then I am in a situation where I am working hard, trying to meet a deadline. My best resort will be to not get into a detailed discussion with anyone, to tell them that let us speak after 6 p.m. It is polite to tell people when we are busy that please, can we have this discussion after this time or tomorrow? Because today I've got enough on my plate, I'm extremely busy, I'm extremely occupied, and therefore please give me an opportune moment when I'll be able to be more receptive. That is a very courteous thing to do. It's a done thing. We should do that. Instead of just rushing through somebody's presentation, or just not paying attention, or somebody's wanting to talk to us, we don't really do that. If we talk of personal communication a little more, when is it that two human beings are in the best form of their lives in terms of communication? When is that? If you look at children, children are certainly not good listeners because they are ready to play, ready to eat a lollipop, or ready to play with their toys, or the mama is running after them, trying to give them a glass of milk, and the children are running away. That communication is very much one-sided. And the child will only come and talk to the mama when something is required. But that's childlike. It's okay. Children are creative, children are busy, children are active. Their communication skills are normally not full of patient listening skills. But as we mature, as we grow older, our patient listening skills have to come into the picture. Patient reading skills have to come into the picture. I'll give you a first story of the day. So Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon, you know, he has just retired or resigned as the CEO, and he's taken over as a mentor of the company. Jeff Bezos, whenever he starts a meeting at Amazon or wherever, he makes people read the agenda notes for 10 minutes before the meeting starts. So everybody converges at 4 o'clock, let's say the time of the meeting. Everybody's sitting with a piece of paper. Jeff Bezos says, okay, let's read the agenda first. And those 4 or 5 pages, whatever the note says on their phone or computer or paper, whatever it is, I doubt that Amazon has paper over there, but whatever they have, they will all read the agenda for 10 minutes without speaking. Which means that all of them will be literally on the same page. They will be all in sync with each other before the meeting starts. Because what happens before the meeting? Nobody has read the agenda carefully, even in Amazon, even in a top company or the top government echelons of the world, even in the United Nations, perhaps. So what happens? Everybody is reading for 10 minutes. They have to read. The CEO, the boss is sitting. I've got a piece of paper or an agenda in my computer and I'm reading it. I am now in sync or understanding what is required of me in the meeting. This is one method which people often adopt. Of course, when I said United Nations, I must give you a funny story. And poor Mr. S.M. Krishna, he passed away. He was the foreign minister of India quite a few years ago. And he was to deliver a speech at one of the United Nations forums, not the main United Nations Assembly, but somewhere, maybe external affairs was the topic, or foreign relations was the topic. And poor Mr. S.M. Krishna was to speak after the foreign minister of Brazil, perhaps, or Argentina. And he went up to the dais to speak, and he found a speech over there, and he started reading from it. Now, the problem was that that speech was not his speech. It was the speech of the previous foreign minister of the other country. And he started reading from that speech, and when he started reading from it, he realized only after reading 1.5 pages, when it came to the government of Brazil, that he realized that he's reading from somebody else's paper. And then his officers or colleagues rushed with the right speech for him to read. Official communication, if we talk about it, is full of funny incidents. Now, I was Director Communication of the Chandigarh administration or the government. Now, as Director Communication of the Chandigarh administration or government, I was supposed to defend the government for whatever it did. It was my job that the media did not publish anything untoward, unfair, or something that was not up to the mark about the government, or something that we could not have published in the government, about the government in the newspapers. So therefore, it was extremely important for us to realize that we have to keep the media well informed. So one mode of official communication, and some of you may be communication experts or professionals for organizations, could be government, could be academia, could be private sector organizations, or you could be students. The point is that when we represent an organization, our communication has to be to the benefit of that organization, and it has to be keeping in tune with the ethos and the aims and the vision of that organization. So I was often ready with 4 or 5 important notifications from the government, which were not that urgent, but they were important. There's a difference between urgent and important, which I often talk about in my talks about management and leadership. One day, perhaps we will talk about leadership and management. Today, we are talking about communication. So in those talks, I often mention this fact that you should keep ready some papers, some information which is maybe not urgent, but only important. And important communication can be used on a bad day. So the director of PR or communication of any organization should have such voluminous information available with him or her, which can be given out to the media by her or him at the time when it is required. So, for example, if the government finds that today something untoward happened in the city of New York, and you may have read or heard, all of you, that there is a power crisis in the state of Texas in the US at the moment. Power gone, water not coming, people have moved to one or two safe places. It's very cold, though Texas is not a cold place, but this is the peak of winter perhaps. So people are uncomfortable. Now, in such a situation, the government cannot defend itself. Official communication will become poor communication because there is nothing to defend. So whatever the papers are going to write or the news that is going to come will be negative. So what can be done? What can be done is to use those important voluminous notifications which the government often brings out from time to time and use them in a way that they will come in on the same day. Now, a newspaper has a certain amount of space. It doesn't have extra pages on any day except maybe a Sunday or something. So they will try to fit in everything there. If that negative news can be offset by that positive bit of news which is there, this is a PR skill, then that will balance out a lot of things. Your space for the negativity will be less, and the space for the important notification will take up a lot of